Hey everybody, Teching and Barry here. Welcome back to the channel, and this is going to be an interesting video. This is one that I've been working on for a while. This is in collaboration with a certain artist. We'll get to him in a moment. But think of this kind of like a sequel video to one that I filmed a few years ago. I think it was back in 2021. I was back in the old studio, back in the halcyon days before I was 30. Oh, God. This is going to be something now. Every time I look back on my channel, hey, guys, remember this video I filmed before I was 30? Yeah, I remember back in the old days. Anyway, it was a video titled The Straw Hats' Unknown Parents. Pretty straightforward. It was a video where I looked at the Straw Hats' unknown parents, like Nami's parents and Franky's parents, the parents that we've never met in the story. Oda's never really addressed. Well, he's talked about Franky's parents a little bit, but we've never seen them, and I understand that a running theme in One Piece is, of course, not so much blood relation is what matters, but it's really about who steps up to raise the child, So, for example, with Nami and Nojiko, Bellmere is their mother, like 100%. Bellmere is the mother of Nojiko and Nami, all right, because she's the one that adopted them and raised them. Tom is 100% the father of Franky, okay? However, it is interesting to think about, like, what Nami's biological parents would look like, And, also keep in mind, like, Nami probably doesn't even remember them. I mean, she was, like, less than a year old. She was a baby when they were killed in the Oikok Kingdom by pirates, and then Nojiko found her. Nojiko was only a couple years older than Nami. She was like 3, and then Bellmere was the Marine that went to go fight in this war, and then she found both of them and brought them back to Kokoyashi and, raised them and everything, until Arlong showed up and threw Bellmere in the dungeon. That's the biggest plot hole in all of One Piece. Why didn't they rescue Bellmere out of the dungeon? She's still there! I tell you, sometimes, the way Oda writes this story, I just don't get it. Actually, that would have been funny. It's just like, they didn't even address it in 4Kids. They were like, I sentence you to the dungeon now, Bellmere. And it's like, they could have had, like, I guess that would have to have them some line of dialogue later, like, they could, you know what they could have done? They could have had a line where they're like, we're going to get Bellmere out of the dungeon. And like, oh, she escaped. And then it creates like, and then 4Kids didn't dub all of One Piece, but it sort of creates a plot thread. Like, maybe Nami will be reunited with her mom someday. You know what I mean? No, that's clearly not the case. No, she got shot and killed by Arlong. And, Tom got sentenced to be taken away by the sea train. Not really sure what happened with him. And then there's other Straw Hat parents that we literally just don't know anything about. We don't know anything about Brook's parents, and now that Jinbe is a Straw Hat, we really don't know anything about his parents. I don't think Jinbe and Brook's parents have ever been referenced, right? So, this was renewed in terms of interest when in the most recent SBS Volume 105, Oda revealed the family tree of Zoro, revealing not sketch art, but like silhouetted art of Zoro's mother and father, as well as his grandparents, okay? So, Zoro's grandmother was Furiko, or Furiko or Fuyumi, I can't remember which one of the two. She was a Shimosuke clan member that was the brother of Ushimaru, okay? And so she ended up in Shimosuke village when Kozaburo left Wano, and then she met Zoro's grandfather, Pin Zoro, and then they had a son who was Arashi, who then met a woman named Terra, who was a daughter of mountain bandits, and then they had Zoro, okay? And so I think some people were a little upset over the reveal of this. I guess people wanted Zoro's dad to be like really relevant to the story in some way. Both of Zoro's parents are confirmed to be dead by Oda. Arashi was killed fighting pirates years ago, and Terra died of generic anime mother disease. I tell you what, at least a dozen anime mothers die of generic anime mother disease every single year. Maybe Chopper will find a cure when he finally becomes the greatest doctor in the world. Who knows, right? So that's pretty much all we got there with Zoro's family tree. I mean, maybe at some point we'll have a flashback with Zoro at Shimosuke, and maybe Oda will actually draw what Arashi and Terra looked like, but don't expect them to be really relevant to the story, and even asking for that is a little bit of a stretch. But that was pretty much just Oda explaining, hey, here's how members of the Shimosuke clan ended up in the East. Also, Kozaburo's line resulted in Koshiro, Zoro's master, and then eventually Kuina, who passed away, and then Tashigi is also involved in this. Not all of the Wano inhabitants settled at Shimosuke. Some of them settled at other points in the east, and that's most likely where Tashigi's family line comes from and all that jazz. But yeah, so tying this back, though, At the same time all of this was going on, when SBS 105 came out and we're finding out about Zoro's parents, Roger's Base, over on his channel, did the Im-sama art contest. And so he did this art contest to have a bunch of artists draw Im-sama, and then we selected the winners. So there was Roger, and then Joy Boy, and then me were the judges, okay? And the third prize winner in that contest was Chancil. And Chancil drew this amazing full-page spread of Im-sama that I absolutely just loved. I couldn't tell you for any specific reason why I love this one, why it got my vote. I'm not really sure. I think it might be the red hair. The red hair just kind of clinches it for me, really. Well, anyway, congrats to Chancil for drawing Im-sama there and having third place in the contest. But also at the same time, Chancil also drew the family tree of Zoro in his own interpretation, taking the silhouettes that Oda had drawn of Arashi and Terra and Pinzoro and everybody, and drawing them in his own style, which is very similar to the One Piece style. Really good style there. And so I was like, oh, this is so cool. And so I used this in the Zoro family tree video. I asked Chancil if I could use it, and he's like, yeah, sure, go ahead, no problem. And so I used it. It was great. And then since I'm like, it was like connecting the dots here, I'm like, wait a moment here. You know, we have the reveal of Zoro's family tree in an SBS, and then Chancil also drew the family tree, and his art style is very similar to Oda's, and I'm like, you know what? I think I could do a sequel to the parent video, where let's go through all of the Straw Hats whose parents we know nothing about, and then I can ask Chancil, I can come up with, like, ideas and stuff, and I'd be like, okay, we can work together here, and we can make some designs for the Straw Hats' unknown parents. And so I contacted him about that, and he's like, yeah, this is great. So I commissioned some artwork from him, and it took a little while, but we got it all together here, and so that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at the Straw Hats' unknown parents. Now, a couple of clarifications here. The Straw Hats, as you can tell from behind me right here, that we're going to be focusing on, we're only going to be focusing on 4 of them, because there's only 4 Straw Hats who we don't really know anything about both of their parents. We have Nami, we have Franky, we have Brook, and we have Jinbe, all right? All the other Straw Hats, while they may have parents that we have never met before, we at least know one of their parents. And so since we know at least one of their parents, I don't know, I always think that maybe Oda might do something. Like, we know Luffy's dad is Dragon. Yeah, Luffy's mother is probably going to be revealed at some point. Maybe not something involving Luffy, but something involving Dragon or Garp's backstory. We're probably going to see the design of Luffy's mother. I feel like that has to happen at some point. So I did not bother asking Chancil to draw Luffy's mom. He already drew Zoro's parents, Arashi and Terra. Then we know nothing about Nami's. Usopp, we know both of Usopp's parents. We know Banchino was his mother. She also died of generic anime mother disease, so very sad. And then, of course, his father is Yasopp, and he's the sniper aboard the Red Force as a member of the Red Hair Pirates under Shanks, and so he's going to be relevant in the story coming up here since Shanks is more relevant. Sanji, we had a whole arc dedicated to finding out about Sanji's biological parents. His mother's name was Sola and was very loving. His father was Judge, not so loving. And, of course, his adopted father, who actually practically raised him, was Zeph. Okay, so no point in doing Sanji. Chopper's parents were just reindeer, and we actually do see them. At least we see Chopper's father. I don't know if it's in the manga, but we definitely see him in the anime. He's this really rough reindeer that has like a scar on his face, and he's just like, you know, you have a blue nose, I'm kicking you out of the herd, you know? So technically speaking, I guess just go on Google and type in reindeer, and then there you go. There's Chopper's biological parents right there. Of course, he was raised by Hiraluk and then eventually Kureha. So, yeah, you can look at Chopper basically having a father figure and a motherly figure in certain ways. There you go. There's Chopper. With Robin, we know about her mother, of course, Nico Olvia. She appears very prominently during the flashback at Ohara. We know very little about Robin's father. We've never met him. It was mentioned that he died, and Olvia was kind of picking up the torch and carrying on the study of the poneglyphs since her husband had died, okay? And so this happened when Robin was apparently very young. Robin was 2 when Olvia left on the expedition, so implying that Robin's father had to have died, you know, before that, so probably doesn't even remember, Robin doesn't really remember who her father is, but I didn't want to include him here either, because I don't know, we met Olvia, we might meet Robin's father. Robin's father might be the man marked by flames for all we know. We have no idea, right? So then after Robin, we have Franky. We'll be talking about Franky, and then Brook, and then Jinbe. So the last 3 Straw Hats to join, ironically enough. We don't really know anything much. Franky a little bit, but we'll get to him. All right, so with that being said, let me move over to another screen. We have Barry down there, as well as we have Chancil, Chan's icon there. I'll leave links to all of his stuff down below, to his Twitter and all that stuff. So go check him out. He does really good work there. A lot of really cool artwork. I'll throw another one up he did recently that I really enjoyed. He drew Nami, Robin, and Vivi as the 3 admirals. Oh my goodness, Chancil. Oh my god. Okay, this is... Yes, okay, so go check out Chancil's stuff. Okay, so first up, we are talking about Nami Swan, Nami's parents, okay? So once again, to reiterate here, Nami's mother was Belmere. Okay, and her sister is Nochiko. None of them are related by blood, but they were a family through and through. So just for, just to be interested in, like, let's see what Nami's parents would have looked like. So I thought about this design for a little bit, and I know this really doesn't make much sense when it comes to, like, how genetics work, like how hair color works. But considering that Nami has orange hair, I was like, all right, wouldn't it be interesting if Nami's parents had red hair and blonde hair, right? And I understand, because you mix red and yellow and you get orange. Now, I know that's, like, you're not, like, hair color is not determined by, like, you're mixing paint together. I understand. But this is anime logic we're talking about here. And that was kind of where the basis started. And when we get to Nami's mother, that actually ended up lining up really well. So I was like, okay, let's have Nami's father have red hair and Nami's mother be blonde, okay? So the first character here, the first design, is Nami's father. And I didn't provide any names. Chancil did not either. I thought it would be kind of fun if down in the comments you could comment on what the parents' names would be. Like a name that would fit the character's face and being like the father of the Straw Hat. Let me know. So this is the first piece of artwork we have here for Nami's father. Yeah, I like this design here. So specifically, I asked Chancil to give him red hair, but also try to make him distinct enough from Shanks, because I was worried if I had a male character that was drawn with red hair, immediately everyone's gonna think like, Nami's dad was Shanks, and I'm like, so try to make his hair a little bit different. So whereas Shanks's hair is a lot longer and he just kind of has it out, he doesn't really comb it or anything like that. I love that Chancil gave him the nice sleek comb over. He wears hair gel, he's stylish, okay? And I mean, like, let's just be honest here. I mean, Nami is drop dead gorgeous, so maybe both of her parents would also be kind of like model hot, like you could see him on like a magazine cover or like A-list. If movies existed in the One Piece world, maybe they would be like movie stars or something like that. But anyway, so for Nami's father and Nami's parents, both of them, I came up with little backstories for each of them to see how it would go. So from what we know about Nami, she comes from a place called the Oikot Kingdom, which is located in the east. Oikot is just Tokyo spelled backwards, which makes me think that Oda did not really put a lot of thought into it. I know there's a lot of people out there that are thinking that, like, oh, what if we're going to do something really interesting with the Oikot Kingdom, right? Like, what if it turns out Oikot is, like, really relevant to the story? And I'm like, guys, it's literally just Tokyo spelled backwards. I don't think Oda really put a lot of thought into it. Maybe he could back build it to be something cool. I don't like the idea that, like, because people throw out, like, what if Nami was royalty? What if Nami was, like, the princess of the Oikot Kingdom? Like, her parents were the king and queen, and they died, and then Nami is, like, a princess. I mean, yeah, Nami is a princess. Let's not lie about that. Sanji would agree. But at the end of the day, I really thought it would be best if Nami's parents were just regular civilians in the One Piece world. They were not pirates. They were not Marines. They were not revolutionaries. They were not royalty. They were not part of the aristocracy. They were just regular people. And with that being said, I asked for Chancil to draw Nami's father in my favorite profession in the fictional world of One Piece. I think you all should know about what it is, and you could tell with how he's dressed. I wanted him to be a baker. So just make Nami's father a really cool baker, all right? And extra points for Chancil for drawing him with the Doskoi Panda brand. I did not specify that, but he went ahead. He added a little bit of flourishes to the design, and I really like that. Doskoi Panda is an established clothing brand in One One Piece, and Nami has even worn clothing in the Doskoi Panda brand before, so I love that as a little extra touch. I love the shades, I love the hair, and so overall, I really think they were just regular civilians. They weren't super rich, but they also weren't super poor. They ran a bakery. Maybe they lived like upstairs from the bakery, or like their house was attached to the bakery or something. So that's Nami's father, and then moving on here to Nami's mother. Okay, now this is interesting because I didn't plan this at first. I was just like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if Nami's dad had red hair, Nami's mother was blonde, and then that's how you get Nami's orange hair. However, with a blonde hair character that looks similar to Nami, I immediately thought of Silk. Now, if you don't know, Oda did 2 versions of Romance Dawn before he actually got to the Romance Dawn that's in the manga. That's actually chapter 1 of One Piece, okay? And so in Romance Dawn version 1 and version 2, there are different female leads in One Piece that are different characters. In Romance Dawn version 1, you have a character named Silk, who is the basis for Nami's mother. And then in Romance Dawn version 2, you have a character named Anne, who has, it's basically Nami except with blue hair, okay? And so you can kind of see like the evolution of these characters that would eventually become, like, they're basically the prototypes for Nami's character at the beginning. You know, Oda was like, all right, let's have a character that has blonde hair, okay, now a character with blue hair, and then finally settled on Nami's character having orange hair for the actual story, okay? So, since Silk is technically the first female lead in all of One Piece, because she was in Romance Dawn version 1, the very first iteration of what One Piece would eventually become, and she's kind of like the prototype for Nami's character design, I thought it would be very fitting to adopt her design as Nami's mom. Okay, so I asked Chancil to base Nami's mother character design off of Silk a little bit. And so I think that really works, okay? And so the last picture here, I just have a photoshopped image of Nami's parents, you know, mother and father, as well as Nami there. This is from a cover page. There was one cover page that was really cool that had all of the Straw Hats and also their when they were children kind of hanging out next to them. And so that was a really cool cover page. And so here it is, just like a little family photo with Nami's parents, okay? And so the story here goes, Nami, like I said, was just a baby when her parents were killed and she was separated, and, you know, Belmir took them to Kokoyashi. So the way how I think this went is they were living in the Oikok Kingdom. Like I said, they weren't anybody super notable. They ran a really solid bakery, though, like 10 out of 10 bakery. They were really serious about their baked goods and their croissants and everything like that. They were a married couple, very happy. They had a child. They had Nami. And then shortly after, unfortunately, pirates raided their island, destroying the Oikok Kingdom, burning it down. It was really rough. Probably when this happened, Nami's father was like, okay, you know, take my unnamed wife, take Nami, you know, get her out of here, you know, hide in the back room, hide upstairs or something like that. I'll take care of this. And I can imagine Nami's father, like, in the bakery, picking up, like, a club or, like, a baseball bat or something, trying to protect his family from the pirates. The pirates break into the bakery. They smash the window. They burst the door open. And there's like, oi! Wow, it smells really good in here. Look at all these baked goods. And then they just grab a croissant and just start eating, just stuff in their face. And he's there, and he just has the baseball bat, and he's just like, hey, listen, just take whatever you want. I don't care. I have a little money. You can take whatever you want from the register. The safe's behind the counter. Just leave my family alone. And he's like, oh, mate, that's not what this is about. And so he takes this baseball bat, Nami's dad, and maybe, like, cracks one of the pirates over the head and knocks him down. And then they're all just like, you know, oh, you shouldn't have done that. And they all kind of just gang up on him, and they eventually overwhelm him. He fights as best as he can. He's bloody. He's broken. His dying breath. Tries to take out as many as he can, but he's not a fighter. He's not a warrior. He's just a baker, damn it. And so he ends up eventually dying there. Meanwhile, Nami's mother takes baby Nami, like cradling her in her arms, and runs out of the bakery, runs through an alleyway. The whole town is on fire. People are being murdered in the streets. You know, pirates are everywhere. I would imagine, you know, she turns a corner into an alley, and there's pirates at one end of the alley, and the pirates from the bakery are chasing her the other way, and she has to figure out what to do. And she, like, leaves Nami maybe in the alley, like, behind something where she won't be seen and she'll be safe. And then eventually the pirates, you know, find the mother and kill her as well. And then eventually, as the battle kind of resumes, the Marines show up and they fight back, and so the pirates are kind of killed, or they're pushed out of the town. It was a very brutal battle from what we've seen in the episode of Nami. It's shown a little bit. But eventually, Nojiko, who, like I said, is only a couple of years older, I think Nojiko was only like 3, she stumbles upon baby Nami and picks her up, and then Bellemere eventually finds both of them and just like, who are you? Is that your sister? And Nojiko's like, no, I have no idea who she is. I just found this baby lying there. And then Bellemere's like, okay, I have to get you children out of here. And she grabs them, and she's wounded herself. Bellemere was pretty banged up. She was bleeding, but takes Nojiko and Nami back to Kokoyashi. There was an orphanage on Kokoyashi Village run by Daddy D and Mommy Me, and they offered to take Nojiko and Nami, but Bellemere suggested, no, I'm going to raise these children as my own. And she does, and she retired from the Marines, and everything's great until Arlong shows up, right? But, yeah, that's the story, I think, of how it went with Nami's parents. I don't think they were anybody that was, like, super relevant in the One Piece world, but they were very loving parents. They cared for her daughter, and I like to think that the last thing that they did was trying to make sure Nami was at least safe where she wouldn't be found, and then they both died trying to protect her. All right, so that's a nice little story I crafted that involved both of Nami's parents being brutally murdered by pirates. But yeah, there's that. I like that. So let me know once again if you have names for these characters. I guess you could just name Nami's mother Silk, but that's kind of on the nose with that one. So maybe you could go back and like think about, like, based on their character designs, like what they what their names would be. Okay, so moving on now, we have Franky. Okay, so we know a little bit about Franky's parents. It was first mentioned, so first of all, Franky was abandoned by his parents, but he was not a baby when this happened. He was actually 10 years old when he was abandoned, so I think Franky actually has a fairly good memory of what his parents at least looked like. Remember, there was the time when Roger arrived at Water 7, and Odin was there, and Odin went over and talked to, like, Franky, and he's like, you want to join our crew? And Franky's like, I was just abandoned by pirates. I don't want you guys to pick me up. And Franky was abandoned 26 years ago, and I think this was 25 years ago when Odin talked to him. So, Franky was only like a year after being abandoned. He's like, screw that. I'm not going out to sea with any more pirates, right? So he was really hurt by the whole thing. And so he chose to stay with Tom and Iceberg and, Kokoro and everybody like that on Scrap Island, working on the sea train and his battle Frankies and everything like that. So later on, it was revealed by, he mentions this to Tom in a flashback, like, I was abandoned by pirates. They just threw me off the ship one day. And Zombai later, after Franky gets his first bounty, he implores the Straw Hats to take Big Bro Franky away, because he's like, he's a son of a pirate. It's in his blood. You got to get him out of here. The Marines will find him. And then later, when the Straw Hats arrive at the Grand Line, no, not the Grand Line, the Red Line, the second half of the Red Line, they all kind of reminisce on where they came from, and Franky mentions that over 30 years ago, I was brought from the South Blue into the Grand Line, most likely on the ship of his parents who were pirates, okay? So with this being said, the design I had here for Franky's parents was kind of the exact opposite of Nami's parents, and they were not good people. All right, they were not good people. They were pirates, they were pillagers, they were murderers, and they did not really care. They had a child who was Franky. Franky was on the ship for a little while, but one day it just, he just annoyed the crap out of them, and so they were just like, screw this, we don't want to be parents anymore, and just chucked him and just left him on Scrap Island, okay? So, very piratey designs here. We have Franky's father, who I just like, let's do some big, buff, muscular, hairy guy. You know what I mean? He's got arm hair. He's got body hair, ladies and gentlemen. I really love the mustache. See, I only gave very brief designs to Chancil. I did not specify, like, give Franky's father the handlebar mustache. He did that on his own, and it's a really cool design. I think it really works, right? I think, because I have the layout here. I have the file that I sent Chancil, and literally all for Franky's parents I said is, Franky's dad, black hair, a large brutish man, arm hair, and an impressive beard. He carries a big gun that's more like a cannon. That's the only description I gave for Franky's father, and Chancil gives me back this masterpiece, okay? So, good job, man. All right. So, yeah, I don't think his dad was a good person. Let's say he was the captain of the crew. Let's go along with that idea. You know, he was the captain of, you know, the cannon arm pirates or something, the firearm pirates. I don't know. And so he goes around and pillages. He's got, you know, the sash, you know, I also said dress them very piratey. Like give them sashes and flintlocks and knives and shit. You know what I mean? The gun is a little bit inspired by Wicked Dick. Wicked Dick being a anime only character and like the best character in all of One Piece, let's be honest here, who has this giant, it's like a pistol, but it's like the size of a cannon, all right? And Zoro cuts him down during this little filler arc with Johnny and Yosuke there. He's Wicked Dick. So I kind of wanted to go ahead with that. So this is, that's Franky's dad. And then moving on to Franky's mother, okay? Franky's mother, yeah, I wanted to go with the sexy design for Franky's mother, okay, a little bit there. Also a pirate. I specified for her to fight with poison knives. I thought, what was a really good, like if you're just if you're an evil pirate and you don't really care, you know, how would you fight? And I'm like, oh, let's go with poison. You know, let's go with poison knives, okay? So she fights with some poison knives here, these cool golden knives. She also has like sashes, flintlocks, random belt buckles on her pants, hoop earring, got a scar on her face, the bandana. I think this looks really cool. I love her hair. I love her like Super Saiyan 3 hair, the blue hair. I think this really works there. The golden lipstick, which is probably also poisonous. I really like that design there for Franky's mother. And so we have the family photo here. We got Franky with his parents. And that probably was honestly around the age that Franky was abandoned by them. He was, like I said, around 10 years old when he was abandoned. So the story here is Franky's dad was the captain of the crew along with his wife. Maybe they met and then joined a pirate crew, or maybe they met while they were on the pirate crew. Who knows? At one point, you know, this dude right here was all about fighting and more fighting and fighting. And then after when he's not fighting, just, you know, sex. Like, that's pretty much what this dude is, okay, is Franky's dad. And so then pretty sure they didn't plan on getting pregnant. Pretty sure it wasn't a moment where they're like, let's get married, honey, and then have a child. I'm pretty sure it wasn't like that. I'm pretty sure it was just an accident, and she got pregnant, and then they had Franky, and they're like, all right, well, maybe we could keep the kid around a little while. Maybe he could be useful. He could, like, carry our stuff or, you know, whatever. I don't think Franky's upbringing was very good. And so Franky, though, he was always, like, remember, when Tom first met Franky, he was already building cannons out of shit on Scrap Island. So Franky did not develop his love of engineering and mechanics through working with Tom. He already had that, okay? So maybe Franky from a young age showed aptitude for, like, working on, you know, gunpowder and cannons and all this stuff in a pirate ship, right? And or so maybe his parents made him learn about that kind of stuff. Dude, it's actually kind of bad. Like, let's say there was a cannon aboard the pirate ship and it was just like, oh, this cannon's not firing correctly. Franky, you're small. No, actually, not Franky yet. Cuddy Flam. Hey, Cuddy Flam, you're not, you know, you're small enough. You can fit inside of this cannon. You know, there's some gunpowder way in the back that got jammed. There's something jammed in the cannon. Take this and just go in the cannon and try to, like, release it. And then I'll light it and see if it fires. He's like, okay, Dad, I think I got it. He's like, all right, I'm lighting it. I was like, wait, no. It's just like, all right. So I think that was kind of Franky's upbringing. It wasn't really fun. Eventually, though, maybe he was tinkering with something on the ship. Maybe he was messing with cannons or something, and he caused the ship to, like, explode or something. He was messing with gunpowder, and his parents were just like, oh, okay, you know, this kid's too much of a liability. And the dad just literally picks Franky up and then just chucks him off of the pirate ship, and he lands somewhere on Scrap Island, and that's where Tom ends up finding him. That honestly makes a lot of sense. Going along with this logic, I think Franky's parents are also most assuredly dead. Maybe this is the one that Oda might do something with at some point. Maybe he'll bring up Franky's parents. But honestly, what I think happened is they abandoned Franky and they sort of got their comeuppance. They sort of got, like, you know, like, all right, karma, man, it hits you pretty hard. I think that they eventually ended up taking on more than they could chew. Maybe they went up against a Yonko crew at some point, like they tried taking on Kaido or something, or Whitebeard, and they just got wiped out. They just got decimated by a superior pirate crew, and they're dead now, and Franky's still alive, okay? And so once again, Franky's adoptive father is Tom, and his adopted mother is Kokoro, and his brother is Iceberg, and you know, that's just how it goes. So that's how Franky grew up. But yeah, I think there is, unlike with Nami or Zoro, I think Oda might actually do something with Franky's backstory a little bit, because there's a little bit more there to work with, and it has been hinted at a few times more than like Nami's biological parents really haven't been referenced at all. Franky's at least have been referenced quite a few times, that they were pirates and they weren't great people, okay? Okay, so moving on to Brook. All right, so Brooks was interesting, okay? And I don't know, but there might be a little bit of a Mandela effect here. I'm not really sure, okay? So, in the case with Brook, all right, now obviously Brook is a skeleton. His parents were not skeletons. You know, both of his parents were like, it was Jack Skellington and somebody else, some other woman's skeleton, and they had Brook, and that's the story. I could have just done that. I could have just had Chancil, just draw two skeletons. Just draw two skeletons, there you go. But no, so obviously Brook, as of he is right now, is a skeleton. He's 90 years old. You know, his parents are most assuredly dead, but this is how Brook looked when he was a living man, you know. Brook died, hold on, he was 88 years old when the Straw Hats met him and he joined the crew. And then it was 50 years before that he had died. So Brook died when he was 38, okay? And then he had the power of the Yomi Yomi no Mi, and that, of course, revitalized him and everything. So with the specifications, I did not specify anything involving skin color or skin tone. Chancil sent me images of Brook's parents, you know, like this, and I immediately thought, like, wait a second, because I went back and checked, and I don't know, this is where the Mandela effect comes in. I could have sworn, I don't know if this is like a situation like with Robin, where Robin's skin tone was a lot darker pre-time skip, and then that was more of an anime thing, and then post-time skip, they made her skin tone lighter, which is, I think, more, that's like what Oda intended. But I remember Brook having a darker skin tone when we first get his, I didn't go through all of Brook's, like, flashback scenes, but I just remember that being, like, having a slightly darker skin tone, or maybe it was just tan, but whatever, I think this works here. So with Brook's family, a little bit about Brook's backstory. We don't know about his parents, but in terms of his backstory, Brook came from a kingdom in the West Blue. We know that he was the commander of a battle convoy in that island's navy. So he wasn't part of the Marines. He was the header. He headed up a battle convoy, okay? And so eventually he ends up joining Yorkie and the Rumbar Pirates. We don't really know exactly how that happened, how he decided to leave the kingdom and become a pirate. Eventually Yorkie dies from an illness on the Grand Line, and the Rumbar Pirates are then headed up by Brook himself. And then, of course, they all die. They get attacked by a pirate crew using poison. Maybe it was Franky's parents. Maybe Franky's parents killed. And I don't think the timeline would even work for that. But anyway, yeah. So this is Brook's father right here, who I wanted to be in a Three Musketeer kind of design. Brook's father's design that I gave is Brook's father was a knight for the kingdom in the West Blue. Brook later became a leader of a battle convoy, so I like to think that his father also worked for the kingdom's army. Give him a Three Musketeers vibe, having some light armor and wielding a rapier. Also a small afro and black hair, okay? So that was like the design I gave, and I really love the Three Musketeer design that Chancil gave, and also the design for the kingdom, like the eye in the center there with like the like tentacles coming out of it. I'm not really sure. The armor and the rapier and the sword. So with Brook's parents, I don't think they were like part of the high royalty or anything like that. Like they were not part of like the king and queen of this kingdom in the West or anything like that. But they were like part of maybe the royal guard. They were part of the aristocracy. Maybe they were like minor nobility. At least Brook's father was, okay? And so maybe he was responsible for, yes, he was the one that originally headed up this battle convoy, and then that title passed to his son. All right, when he got too old and he retired, he gave the title to Brook, okay? Now, as for Brook's mother, I wrote for her to be a famous musician in the West. Like, she was the most famous musician, like she was the most famous cello player in all of the West Blue. And one night, I like to think there was a very fancy gala in the west. All right. And so the kingdom that Brook was from, everybody's there. Everybody that's anybody was at this big gala event. Everybody's wearing fancy outfits and dresses and everything. The king and the queen are both there. And there's this big, like, royal guard, like, entourage. Okay. And Brook's father was part of that entourage. He was part of, like, he wasn't, like, the one that personally guarded the king, but he was part of, like, the royal musketeers or whatever that would guard the king. Okay. And so he's part of this lineup. And then as the main event for this gala, Brook's mother comes out and she just delivers this absolutely just enrapturing performance with the cello. Okay, and everybody in the entire hall is just captivated by this. And I like to think there was a moment where Brook's father was there and he's standing at attention and he has his sword on his hip and he's there to, like, protect the king and always be attentive and everything like that. Like, he heads up this battle convoy. He has a lot of, like, status in the kingdom as, like, nobility. And so but he becomes kind of distracted by Brook's mother and her song and her performance. And so I like to think there's a moment where Brook's father is just kind of looking over and just like, huh? And then Brook's mother looks up and just kind of like sees Brook's father looking at her and she kind of smiles. And then they're just like, it's just like, oh, whatever. And then after the performance is over, they introduce each other, and she's like, nice to meet you, sir. And he's like, my lady, it's like stuff like that. Very, very like nobility. And just keep in mind also, this would have been a long time ago. This would have been over 90 years ago. This would have been how they met, and so here we go. We have the family photo there. I think they grew up in Brook grew up in a rather nice house. Maybe not like a giant mansion, but a nice home for nobility. And he was taught from a young age how to use the sword. Hey, he fights with the fencing style, so he fought how to fence. Also, his mother, gave him the love for music that he has right now. Brook is seen here as a child playing the violin. His mother, I interpreted, playing the cello. Brook can play pretty much any instrument. He can play the piano. He can play the clarinet, a tuba. Give Brook a tuba and he can play that tuba. But I think he prefers string instruments as his personal favorite because he definitely does have an affinity for those. We always see him pulling out like a guitar or a violin. So I like to think he started with string instruments, and that's really, really where he started his interest, okay? And so I like to think he got that interest from his mother. His mother was a world-famous cello player, and so that's where he started with the cello and violin, string instruments, and worked his way up to, like, wood, what was it called? Not woodwork instruments. Are they called that? I forget. I'm not a musician guy, but maybe percussions, like the drums a little bit, and then the pianos and stuff like that. Woodwind instruments, that was it. He's like woodwind maybe later and stuff like that. And so, yeah, he had a relatively happy upbringing. I don't see any particular problems there. He was raised in this environment, learning how to fight and be part of this royal, like, battle convoy or whatever. Eventually, his father retires, and so Brook takes over that position, and something happens in Brook's life where he decides to become a pirate, and we still do not know exactly what the situation there is. But Brook's parents, I'm giving them a happy ending in that they died of old age, holding each other, holding their hands, and then that's how they went. I don't think they were murdered. I don't think they were horrible people. They lived to a ripe old age of maybe into their 80s or 90s, and then they passed away in each other's arms, okay? And meanwhile, Brook was a skeleton on board the Rumbar ship out adrift in the Florian Triangle, and that's just what happened there. They are most assuredly dead. So that's Brook's parents. Finally, we have Jinbe. Now, Jinbe was really interesting because from what we know about fishman genetics, just because Jinbe is a whale shark fishman does not mean that both of his parents had to be whale sharks or even fishman for that matter. Jinbe's parents could have both been merfolk, a merman and a mermaid having a whale shark fishman. That's perfectly within the line of genetics. All it means that Jinbe is a whale shark fishman, all that means is at some point way back in his family's ancestry, there was a whale shark fishman, and so it carries over with him, okay? And so you'll see people in Fishman Island, like let's say you have somebody who's a goldfish merman getting together with an octopus mermaid, and then you'll have a, I don't know, a swordfish fishman as a son. you know, and like that's perfectly, that makes perfect sense with the genetics with Fishman, okay? So I actually played around with this more from the symbolism angle because, you know, it doesn't matter if they were merfolk or Fishman, Jinbe's parents would represent a type of marine life. And so, because a lot of animals in our world have symbolism attached to them, I was looking at the symbolism of various fish and marine life. And I was saying, like, okay, which symbolism kind of fits Jinbe the best here, okay? And so, this is Jinbe's father. The design for Jinbe's father, I'll just read it from the document here. Jinbe's father, I went with a barracuda fishman design. Barracudas are extremely powerful swimmers and are known to be aggressive when provoked, but rarely attack humans. They symbolize both strength and determination. All right, so I think this kind of works. Barracudas are very fierce. They're also extraordinarily strong swimmers. I think they're some of the strongest fish that can swim the fastest. I think a barracuda, correct me if I'm wrong here, and I might be misremembering, I might be remembering another type of fish, but I think they could swim up to like 80 miles an hour. Like, they're very fast swimmers in the water, and they represent absolute strength. They have to be to swim that fast against like the rough currents of the waves, but also determination, and they only use their strength when provoked, okay? So I like that design, kind of setting it up for Jinbe to learn Fishman karate, and I think Jinbe's father was also proficient in the use of Fishman karate and jujutsu and everything like that. Jujitsu, I get it. It's Jujutsu Kaisen is what does that to me. I have a Jujutsu Kaisen calendar right next to me, and it's just like, is it jujitsu or jujutsu? Jujutsu, I think, is like the more magical angle with it, like jutsu, you know, like Naruto, and then jujitsu is the actual martial art that exists in our world. I apologize. Anyway, I think he was a master of that, and he's the one that taught Jinbe, you know, the basics, the fundamentals of, you know, using Fishman karate and everything like that, and teaching him, you know, like, you know, son, you will have strength, but it's not just about strength to protect those that you love. It's also to be determined and to know when to use that strength, okay? Then for Jinbe's mother, I went with a koi fish mermaid design. Here are my notes on that. Koi are very important fish in Japanese history right up to today. They represent loyalty, courage, and perseverance, all traits that I think embody Jinbe very well. Koi come in many different colors and designs, but I went with the orange and white design here since that one specifically represents life change and transformation. That is something that was really crucial, considering Jinbe and the different phases of his life that he goes through. You know, he was part of the Ammonites in his youth, and then he fought alongside Fisher Tiger against the humans and, you know, like liberating the slaves and everything. And then after that, he joins the world government as a warlord. I'll just go over to their family photo right here. So then Jinbe becomes a warlord and then works for the government. And then after that, he rebels against the warlords, and he's like, I will not be part of this organization anymore. And then he goes back to being a pirate, and then he joins Big Mom's crew, and then he joins Luffy's crew. Like, so Jinbe goes through a lot of transformation in his life, and not just like transformation, like getting stronger and or joining pirate crews. He also goes through like the way his morality, his viewpoints on the world, all of this stuff change and shift as Jinbe encounters more and more people throughout his life. In his youth, perhaps maybe his father was also a member of the Ammonites, and so Jinbe is like, I'll join the Ammonites as well. But then Fisher Tiger and his message, you know, really speaks to Jinbe, and so he goes out to sea and joins the Sun Pirates. And then after this event, the Otohime's voice speaks to him, and he becomes a warlord to try to better the connection between fishmen, merfolk, and humans, so they can maybe live together someday. And then after the events of, you know, when Marineford starts and everything like that, he refuses to fight, and so he decides to give up his title. And then he joins Big Mom, not because he wanted to, but because she was the one that was the emperor that could protect Fishman Island, so he kind of had to join, even if it was against his own principles. And then he rejects Big Mom, and he just decides to finally do what he wanted to do the whole time, like join Luffy's crew. You know, ever since Fishman Island, he wanted to join, but he had to, you know, deal with Big Mom first. And there was a line, I think it was spoken by Aladdin, during the end of Totland, where he basically says to Jinbe, like, Jinbe, boss, it's okay to do what you want to do. If you want to go and join the Straw Hats and be their crew member, their Nakama, go ahead and do that. It's okay. You've done enough for us. And Aladdin is now the official captain of the Sun Pirates, and it's in good hands. And Jinbe is now the helmsman of the Straw Hat crew. All right. So, yeah, that's basically the story there with Jinbe. Like I said, I went more of a symbolic angle with both of the fish, with a barracuda representing the strength, determination angle, and the koi fish representing, loyalty, courage, perseverance, and personal transformation. I think that all fits Jinbe's character really well. Okay. So I'm just going to head back to the main screen here. All right, and so that's the video. Will we get to see any of these characters in the story? Will Oda ever draw Jinbe's dad or something like that? Like I said, I think the ones that are the most likely are probably Franky's parents, if they are going to be referenced at all. Brook and Jinbe and Nami's biological parents have not been referenced a single moment in this entire story. So I think it's very doubtful they'll ever be actually included in the story. But hey, who knows? Maybe because Oda drew the family tree of Zoro, maybe that'll be the next thing in the SBS. Just like how Oda drew Luffy older, and then all of a sudden everybody was asking, well, we need to see Zoro older. We need to see Robin and Sanji drawn at age 40 and age 60. And then Oda kind of drew all of them. I think he drew all of them at this point, except for Brook and Jinbe. But Brook is kind of already 90 years old, and he's a skeleton. Yo-ho-ho! So he's probably not going to change all that much. But Jinbe maybe could. You can maybe draw Jinbe at, he's in his 40s right now. You could draw Jinbe maybe at age 60 and age 80, old man Jinbe, let me tell you a story, about how I changed the world with the Straw Hats, something like that. I can see Jinbe at age 80 being the wise old elder of the fishmen, that's living in the island. The Fishman Island is now raised above. It's now living under the sun, and he's under a tree just kind of snoozing one day, and then the local kids come over and they're just hey, Grandpa Jinbe, tell us a story. And he's like, huh, what's that? All right, let me tell you a story. Something like that. I could see that totally. But who knows? Yeah, maybe people will be asking Oda from now on, hey, you drew Zoro's family tree. Can you draw Nami's parents, or draw Brook's parents, or Franky's parents, or Jinbe's? Something like that. Can you draw Robin's father? If you're not going to do anything with Robin's father, can you draw what he looked like? So it would be interesting. And I think Oda, if he was not planning on doing anything with these characters, I think he would go ahead and do that. Maybe in a data book or in the SBS or something like that. So yeah, that was the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't have any turtle facts for you. I know I've been slacking on that. I need to get back to it. I got a new intro for it, too. I got to use that. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks to Chancil. Once again, check out Chancil's stuff over on his Twitter. All the links down below. Does some really good stuff, some artwork on One Piece and all that, and really kind of close to Oda's styles. So, absolutely, thanks to him. This will be Teching and Barry signing out. You all have a great day. Later.